The whole purpose of this show is to engage with business owners and be able to answer questions for people that will give them some insight and perspective on how to grow and scale a business. Not only leadership, but real life examples. This is the golden moment. I would do business with you right now.
So, hey, Ashley, I'm going to have you unmute yourself right quick. And we had a couple people sharing wins, I take it. Is that what was going on? Or is she frozen right now?
We were sharing wins, people that are here for the very first time as well.
Awesome. Fantastic. So we had Sherman already share. See, Dr. Percy's got his hand up, and we've got Miriam. We have her hand up as well. Well, tonight, everyone, so Miriam and Dr. G, Sherman, we'll get to you as well. Tonight is all about, if you saw it in the text, we're talking about competitive advantage and what that means to your business, why you should be concerned about that, and how to turn that into intellectual property assets. And I just want to go ahead and bring on two incredible people to, and this will happen, by the way. We might not have some elaborate opening, but I'm going to make this really good when I introduce our special guests tonight, because they're two incredible people who are extremely well versed on this subject and will be our amazing guests this evening to help answer all of your questions and provide some very insightful content this evening. So I would like to welcome to the call Miss Sharon Lechter and Mr. Michael Lechter. Sharon Lechter is an entrepreneur. She is an international speaker. She's a best-selling author, mentor, philanthropist, and happens to be a licensed certified public accountant, just to top everything off on that. So she's on the call. And then Michael Lechter, who happens to be her amazing husband. He's not only he's an attorney.
41 years.
Oh, that's right. But Michael is also an electrical engineer. He's a certified licensing professional, an entrepreneur, a best-selling author as well, and an owner at an amazing spot here in Arizona, because that's where I'm located, at a guest ranch called Cherry Creek Lodge. And so I would like to welcome Sharon and Michael to the call. Are you guys there?
We are
Howdy,
here,
howdy.
Heather. Thank you so much. We are so delighted to be with you, and Enrique and Ashley. Thank you so much. And what a great group. I think everybody should just say hello and thank you to Heather. You did a great job. We're very, very happy to be here.
Boy, it's great looking at all of these smiling faces.
Fantastic group. I told him, I said, I've been on these calls a couple of times. This is his virgin affair here. He's here for the first time. So maiden voyage.
Maiden voyage. There we go.
Yes. We're so happy to be all with you, and welcome to all of you that are new. And yes, we are a power couple. Most of the time we get along, and that's a good thing. I was telling Buck a couple of weeks ago, he said, what's the secret to a 41-year marriage? And I said, we got to have as much respect as you have love, because sometimes when the love gets trying, the respect steps in. So,
But normally she says separate bathrooms.
yes. Yes.
And closets, I hear.
That's
closets.
right. Yes, separate closets are really good. But yes, assets are sexy. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with all of you. And thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Heather. And I'm so excited. I've known Brandon for many years, and I've known Grant for many years. But during the building of Audigy, I met several times and spoke for his group, and just incredible relationship. And I teach the power of association for those of you that don't know my specific background. If you are familiar with the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I wrote Rich Dad and 14 other books in that series and built that organization around the world. And before that, I met the inventor of the first talking children's book, if you remember these little things, and met the inventor and built this. And this was when kids didn't have electronics. I know dinosaur days, but I said, how can we get parents to trust us? And so we did things like power of association with little companies like Walt Disney and Marvel Comics and Sesame Street. And so it was allowed us to get that level of trust and be able to explode that company in a positive way around the world. And so my background is building businesses, entrepreneurship, and marketing. Michael's is understanding the strategy behind the legal protection. And so together we have had such an incredible, wonderful experience together in building global brands and helping other clients build them as well. Would you like to say something?
37 words to my one. We're right on par. What Sharon is talking about is what we call in-licensing. We're taking advantage of somebody else's resources. We're using other people's resources. In this case, their credibility and their intellectual property. And we're able to take advantage of that, get a license so that we could associate our product with their credibility, and through doing that, built our own credibility.
And so as you see companies today, speed to market is everything. And so that power of association is very important. So when I learned that through the talking book, and when I started Rich Dad, it was like, okay, I want to use that same concept. I have the guard my own intellectual property. But when I felt we needed to go into infomercials, I thought, well, who's the best company? Time Life. So they came in, they used their time, their people, their money to help us spread that message around the world.
Yeah, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Again, if there's somebody else that already has a resource that you need, you can work a deal with them and take advantage of their present foundation rather than trying to build it yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't necessarily agree that time to market and speed to market is the end all be all.
See, we don't always agree.
Yeah, no. And the fact of the matter is, you're not talking about a sprint in the business world. You're talking about something that's more like a relay race where somebody can come up and grab the baton out of your hand. So you need to take the long term, and we'll get more into that. It's all about getting that competitive advantage and sustaining that competitive advantage.
So our goal today in the next hour is to talk to you about your companies. I want to see in the chat, how many of you have copyrights?
So how many of you have trademarks?
All of you do. All of you do.
Everyone.
Every one of you have copyrights. If you've written an email, you have a copyright. If you've written a book, yes, you have a copyright. You all have trademarks. A trademark identifies the source of the good. So we want to identify and help you figure out how to identify your intellectual property and then protect it and then leverage it. Because that's our superpower, helping people find the value that you already have. Find it and then say, what gives you that competitive advantage against other people in your field?
And then you try to find what the essence of that competitive advantage is. What is it that really gives you the competitive advantage? You drill down to its absolute essence, and then you try to protect that, get exclusive rights to it. And that turns it into an intellectual property asset. And that gives you the ability to sustain your competitive advantage. And in some cases, leverage it into deals, into joint ventures,
additional product lines,
additional streams of income.
How many of you want additional revenue streams? Yeah.
Put 10x in the chat if you want additional revenue streams. Let's be honest.
Yes. And how do you 10x? You 10x by identifying your intellectual property and leveraging it. And you do that by finding new associations. And I love the 10x, XXX. Yeah, that's what we want. We want that for all of you. 10x, XXX. Got it. We're working on that. But the reason we are here is that because of the relationship I had with Brennan over the years, and because I know Grant, they have a level of trust in what we do. And so we just announced the last week that we have this joint venture together. And I was down with them on their one-day event they did in Miami a couple of weeks ago. And we're hosting a 2-day mastermind specifically digging deeper into these events. And we'll tell you more about that. But they've invited us into their world as strategic advisors to support you in finding that value so that you can have that higher price. We talk a lot about the last few weeks, for those of you that know me, my new book, Exit Rich, came out and it hit the USA Today and the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. Is doing very well. But the whole essence of Exiting Rich is building the foundation of your business. And in it, we talk about the 6 Ps. And Heather, if you have that slide, we can put that on. About when you build your business, when you want to focus on all of them. Most people think about their product and their profits, but we want to talk about the 6 P's of your business from a standpoint of the people in your business. When I talk about that power of association, do you have people in your business who are strong where you are weak? Do you have a mentor? Advisors. So Mike and I serve as mentors and advisors to a lot of people because we have the opportunity to help them speed their way to success based on our knowledge, our experience. And so that's so important to have the right people around you. And then, of course, your product. And where Mike and I can help people with products is we help them understand taking one product and maybe taking it into a different territory, taking it into a different industry, being able to leverage that and take one stream of income and make it 10.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to do it yourself or using your own resources. This is where the beauty of leveraging intellectual property comes in.
And then the third P is your processes, your business systems. All right. And those business systems are the lifeblood of your company. And too many times people start a business and they own a job. And that's, unfortunately, we don't put the systems in because you cannot scale if you don't put in systems. And that's the processes. How do you do things? How do you answer the phone? How do you take orders? How do you build your product? How do you deliver your service? How do you bill people? How do you collect money? And what happens is people build processes around people, right? They build jobs around people instead of what job needs to be done to facilitate that process. And let me tell you, it's a whole lot easier to manage a process than a personality. And if you agree with me, say yes in the chat. Yes, 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 yes. So much easier. And that is how you scale. You cannot scale if people need to be present to do things. You need to have those processes. And then proprietary, we're going to really dig into this because this is all about this guy right here, your competitive advantage. What do you do better? What do you do cheaper? What do you do higher quality? What defines you from your competition? And that proprietary piece isn't necessarily book value. In fact, the vast majority of it's not on your balance sheet. So we have to identify that intangible value that is huge, sometimes 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times your book value. And so you have to identify it, protect it, and leverage it.
Yeah, understand, 20 years ago, the vast bulk of the value of the Fortune 500 companies was in bricks and mortar, in tangible assets. Well, that's changed. Today, better than 80% of the value of the Fortune 500 companies is in intangible property, intellectual property.
Yeah, think of Airbnb, one of the largest hospitality companies. They own no hotels. Uber, one of the largest transportation companies. They own no vehicles. And so it actually helps us level the playing field. We can compete with the big boys. But that proprietary piece and those intangible value, we're going to really concentrate on that and more when I get through this, because that's where really people miss the boat, understanding the value they have in their company. And then patrons, that's your database. That's your people, your customers. And in today's world, many of you right now are so excited because you've got all kinds of followers on Instagram, Clubhouse, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and that's fantastic. But those are lead generation tools. You need to nurture them and invite them home, get them to your database, because that's your ownership. And that's what it, again, increases your value of your company tremendously. And when you have those patrons, you control the communication. You have the ability to have a lifetime customer. When you are totally relying on your presence in social media, someone else out there is controlling access. And it's very important for you to do that, to build that value of your company. And then profits. Everybody wants profits. But when you don't have the profit level you want, it's because one of these other areas needs work.
Generally, the processes. You've got to have systems to leverage your expertise, to spread your expertise, so you don't have to be there Johnny on the spot to get something done.
So let's dig a little deeper, because we have another graphic, Heather, called the essential components of a successful business. And I would love for you to think about this as it relates to your business as we go through this. Every successful business solves a problem or serves a need. Write down right now, what problem do you solve? What need do you serve? All right, you can put it in the chat, you can put it on your paper, take notes. That's your mission statement. And when you have a bad day, that's what helps get you out of bed. And as you see, this mission is at the top. And then your team, having those right people, that comes back to the people. Do you have the right people on the bus? Do you have people who are strong where you are weak? Do you have people that can replace you? If you truly want a strong business, you'll know you've got it when you can leave and come back 4 months later and it's stronger and better than when you left. And then your leadership skills, not only your leadership, but your leadership on creating other leaders behind you within your organization. So ask yourself, grade yourself in these categories. And these 3 areas, mission, team, and leadership, keeps that company focused and going in the right direction.
Yeah, the leadership kind of makes the executive decisions, keeps the business on course, focused on that mission. The team includes the employees, your mentors, your CPA, your lawyers, the whole schmear.
And it's so important to make sure that, sometimes the people that helped you get to where you are today are not the right people to get you to the 10X, 100X, 1000X. And so you have to be really cognizant of who can lead the way. Have they been there? Okay, have they been successful where you want to go?
Yeah, it's very important to recognize that the applicable skill set changes over time, depending on what stage of development your business is at. So you need to make sure you've got the right people there at the right time. Sometimes the people can grow with the business, sometimes they can't, and sometimes that calls for some hard decisions.
And let's go inside the circle, because if you see the very bottom foundation piece is your legal. And I know Brandon and goes into the types of legal entities, but this is so much bigger than just your entities. It's important to have the right structure. But everything in your business can turn into a house of cards if you don't have the right legal agreements with your outside vendors, with people today. Everybody's outsourcing. You need to have the right written agreements with the people who do work with you.
You need to make sure that those agreements give you what you think you're going to get. Make sure that you own your intellectual property. So you want to have the right types of agreements. You want to pick the right types of entity to get you where you want to go, achieve your mission. You look at your funding sources, you look at your leadership, you look at who's going to be involved as owners, and you pick the appropriate legal entity to do that. You want to make sure that it is a limited liability entity. In most jurisdictions, you're talking about an LLC or a corporation. Otherwise, you can be liable for things that you would never dream that you could be liable for.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right. Sole proprietorships are bad. General partnerships are just plain ugly because you put yourself at risk for everything. And then, and this is not just US based, it's every country in the world. You need to find the right legal structure that is appropriate for your business.
And you need to create the foundation for owning and building intellectual property assets.
And that's one of the stories that Brandon tells about. He and I, when I was speaking for his Audigy group, we were just having a casual conversation. And from that conversation, he shares this story about the fact that I made the comment. He was building this information as what we were talking about, what he shares with you as far as the various ways to build a business. And I said, is that in a separate company? Because that's your content. And so I don't even remember having that conversation, but he keeps reminding me. And
it was impactful.
I'm going, Well, I would have said that. I don't remember this conversation, but yeah, okay. And so as a result of that conversation, he took action. So I want you to write down, take action. All right. Don't just listen today, take action. He took action. And as a result, he sold his company for 77 times EBITDA, but didn't sell his educational part. They had a license. And so they got the license along with it. And he's continued to make them more and more money because they have the opportunity to use that. But he still has the technology, the education that he created so that he can share that through Cardone Ventures. And so that's what we want for you to understand the value of what you know up here and the intellectual property, because he's made millions as a result of that one action that came from a casual conversation with us.
Yeah. And if I may, Sharon, just because looking at the 6 Ps, especially now, and being a part of everything back then, it's when you were especially started talking about proprietary. I think that, what was proprietary was that Audigy Group, the company itself, didn't own hearing aids. We didn't own a hearing aid company, but that was the product that obviously helped us create revenue. But what was so significant was the process, the people behind it, and that made it from the proprietary standpoint. I was just listening to you go through the 6 Ps this time, and I was running the filter of all 6 of those Ps that Brandon had with Audigy Group upon exit, and how it has continued to thrive. And he has grown that company billions, literally billions.
And what you just said, Heather, is so important. I want everybody, I hope you all listen to it carefully, because Brandon's ability to sell 77 times EBITDA was because of his competitive advantage in all of those individual categories. And so as we talk about the essential components, that's where, every element gives you competitive advantage.
Ken. Okay, now think about it. You can have the best product in the world. Okay, it can just knock the socks off of everything that's out there. If you don't have the systems to manufacture it, to sell it, to market it, it doesn't do you any good, right? I see a couple of heads nodding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've got to be able to communicate it out there. So you need to have the communications and marketing mechanisms. Okay, you've got to have the resources available to you when you need them, the cash flow. Now, of course, capital is one of the resources that you need, but there are other resources like manufacturing, like personnel, and all of these things need to be in place when you need them. This is why a business plan that deals with capital needs, with development needs, personnel needs is so important. You've got to plan for all of that and tie it all together.
And so when we talk about the inside that circle on the essential components of successful business, you've got the legal side, and that's everything. Imagine building a house. You got to go down first. You have to have a strong foundation. And then you put in at the top business systems, you put plumbing, you put electrical. Your house isn't going to be very valuable if you don't have those systems. Same thing in your business. And Mike was just talking about, available resources. You don't have to have money to make money. I'll tell you a little story about Rich Dad. When we first did the first print run of books, I wrote a $1,500 check. Robert wrote a $1,500 check. I never had to put another penny in the company, because we self-funded and the company grew and other people came in wanting to pay us to work with us.
We use other people's resources. This is what licensing and joint ventures and outsourcing are all about.
And it's a beautiful thing when you find that right formula to be able to take what you've done and create and see it grow. And those available resources start coming to you. That's when you've become an authority. And Mike talked about those relationships, the power of association, communications and marketing. All those inherently are also business systems, but they all work together. And of course, your product or your service is the deliverable at the top. But right now I'm going to have Mike turn it over to him to talk about your competitive advantage and how it can be sourced here.
The point that Sharon was making about the foundation is if you don't put the foundation in place right from the beginning, your house is going to fall down. Your business is going to fail because it's very difficult to come back after the fact and get agreements in place and recapture intellectual property that you've given away.
So I'm going to, before we get into competitive advantage, I do want to, there's a couple comments in the chat. As I mentioned, we're very excited about this new joint venture, and I'm very careful about who I associate with. And I truly believe in Grant Cardone and Cardone Ventures. And I absolutely have tremendous faith and confidence and experience with Brandon Dawson and his team. So we're very excited to be announcing this joint venture. And we're going to be together for a specific high-level mastermind on August 14th and 15th. And we're going to be digging deep into these intensive areas of finding that value, positioning yourself for exit, creating that intellectual property, identifying it, protecting it. And Mike is coming with me. So hopefully if you've heard something that you like today, you know that this is where you need to be. You're going to be in a room with Brandon, Sharon, Mike, Grant, and 4 or 5 other top level entrepreneurs, and especially crowdfunding, venture funding, amazing marketing expertise.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting really in to the topics of these over 2 days. Michael has an intellectual property audit checklist where you go through and you will identify all those incredible values that you don't even know you have in your business, so that you can elevate yourself and position yourself to be able to do that 10x. Heather, you want to talk something about that?
Yeah, you just are nailing on the head, because I mean, who's getting a ton of value just from sitting here listening to Michael and Sharon? Put 10x in the chat, because imagine this has only been a half an hour, but 2 full days of not just, I mean, and Sharon and Michael have like 1 full day, plus they're on most of the second day as well. But we also have a number of experts, as Sharon was mentioning, talking around quality of earnings reports, how to structure that properly, multi-year reporting, how to plan strategically for the next 3 years and 5 to 10 years, because so many of you are just planning for the now. And unfortunately, when the future hits and you're not prepared for it, that's when, I'm sure Michael and Sharon, you can agree, that's the stuff we all want to be using from a predictability standpoint and understanding what our potential is as business owners. So 2 full days of this, not to mention Brandon Dawson, of course, who is just absolutely incredible. We'll be also doing we'll have opportunity to do some, what we call underwriting, meaning when you're in the room, you'll have multiple opportunities to sit up there and ask questions about your particular business with Sharon, with Michael, with Brandon, or whoever else we have speaking at that time, and get direct advice in the moment. And I think that that's something that's highly valuable. It's like having a private coaching session, literally for 2 days. It's a very intimate environment, small room at the 10X headquarters. Enrique, I know, is in the chat. I know Josh is on the call. Ashley's here. If you guys, and they're putting, I'm sure, in the chat, I'm not even looking at it, but I'm sure that they're saying, call us if you want more information. But that mastermind, as Sharon said, is next Saturday and Sunday, August 14th and 15th in Aventura at 10X headquarters. I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to be?
It's going to be incredible.
It's going to be
You're talking about, all of our brains coming together to focus on you and your business, to support you and elevating your business to where it deserves to be.
Yes.
And what happens is people start businesses, and I want you to put in your chat, answer A or B. Did you start your business A to work until the day you die? Don't see many A's. Or B, people are answering B with what B is. Or B, want to build a business that creates a financial independence for you, your family, and eventually gives you your time back, right? And so all of you want B, but what are you doing about it? Are you taking the actions you need to have that business sing for you? Sing not just at the high level, but at the profit level. And you do that by understanding what we can share with you and learning. We don't know what we don't know. So you need to put yourself in an environment where you will learn from the experts who do know. And every time I'm with Brandon, I learn from him. Every time I'm with Brandon, I think he learns from me. And that's the value of being in that intense environment with smaller groups. It's not hundreds of people, so that we can focus in on getting you to the next level.
Absolutely.
Now, the essential elements that we showed in that circle.
Want us to pull it back up, Michael?
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Those are necessary elements to success, but there's an additional element that you really have to sustain success in a competitive world. And that's an advantage, a competitive advantage. Now, you can find that competitive advantage in any one of the elements, in your product, in your deliverable, in your services, in your systems, the way you produce the product or services, the way that you're able to fulfill them. All of those things can give you advantages relative to the competition. You can have advantages based on your marketing. You can have advantages based on the fact that you got more money than anybody else and can move more quickly. You can have advantages through your legal agreements, setting up exclusivity with suppliers and things like that. But the thing that you need to do is sustain that competitive advantage. So if you've got something about your product or service that's better than everything on the market, what happens when you put the product on the market? The bad guys jump all over it. They adopt, they adapt, they copy.
Mm.
Unless you've got the right type of protection mechanisms in place that would prevent them from doing that.
And Michael's tagline for what he does is he builds forts and fights pirates. He helps you create those assets. Yeah.
It was a lot easier to explain to the kids when they were little I fought, you build forts and fought pirates than to explain what an intellectual property attorney was.
I think it works on this call too, just so we're all clear.
Crystal clear. I love that, Sasha. And I realized I have to jump in here. Omar, I appreciate you posting my 3 favorite words on earth, right? Assets, royalties, leverage. They should all become very good words and favorite words for you as well. Assets are sexy, and believe me, the older you become, the sexier they become. And we want your business to be an asset that stands separate from you, an economic engine that continues creating wealth for you and your family. And when I talk about exit rich, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to sell your business, but you want to be able to have it so that you can leave it to your children, have it put together. And what happens is when you do want to position yourself for sale, if you don't have your house in order, the price goes down and down and down and down. So this helps you understand how we're going to talk to you about how to build that structure so that your business is built in concrete blocks. So it is strong, fortified, and then it can be duplicated for multiple streams of income.
Yeah, the same elements that let you grow, that let you expand, are the elements that you need to make your business saleable. And so you're doing the same thing that you would want to do to grow your business, to set it up for some sort of an exit.
You may have a business that's very successful in Florida that you haven't expanded. So you might find somebody else on the West Coast that wants to do what you're doing, and you can do a joint venture. You can do a licensing agreement. And all of a sudden it works so well that you end up doing 20 of them. And all of a sudden you've 20x your bottom line. And without having to have more employees, it's a wonderful thing. At the height of our success at Rich Dad, I had 5,000 people working for me around the world, only 15 to 17 on my payroll. That was a beautiful thing, because I just had to work CEO to CEO instead of all those employee issues. And so how are you building your company? What is your strategy for how you're going to exit and not just sell it, but to be able to get your time back? We all want our time back. That's our only precious resource. And so yes, you want to solve a problem or serve a need, but you want to do well and receive benefit from it. And you do that by putting the structure and the economic engine in. And so that competitive advantage Mike talks about, we're going to drill down into that step by, we have an 8-page audit checklist going through in all forms of intellectual property, because it could be For instance, Rich Dad Poor Dad, when we first started doing international, they said you can't do purple. And I go, well, why not? And we insisted it stay purple. And in China, they called us the purple storm because it was trade dress. That's part of the trademark arena, right?
Anything that creates an association between your products and services and you as the source can be a trademark, trade dress.
And when we first wrote it, everybody said your book needs to be red, black, or green, because that's what finance books are. And I go, well, why not? That's why I want it to be purple.
Distinction.
I want to be purple. And so you go into bookstores today and you see a lot of purple in the business sections. They weren't there back when we released Rich Dad Poor Dad, because we created that essence, and we want to be able to help you do the same thing. And we want to be there to support you. Please come join us, because we love it. We love seeing opportunities. We will see more for you, more opportunity for you than you see for yourself, because we've been around the block a few times, but we want to open doors and make those introductions and help you move.
Yeah. Typically a business person wears blinders with respect to their invention, with respect to their intellectual property. They view everything in terms of their business, and very often don't recognize that they're solving a problem that occurs in non-competitive lines of business. Businesses that don't have any relationship, that are not in competition with you. And you can license somebody to use your intellectual property in those arenas and restrict them to those arenas. And you keep your competitive advantage, but you've got an additional source of income.
Did you get that?
Think about that.
He's
That
pretty
is
smart.
pure money.
And
Hope
yes,
everyone got that.
the homework before the mastermind is really, we're going to be talking to you about this intellectual property checklist. And we're going to want you to come prepared to understand the value of your business, where you are, and how we can add value to that. And I think it's really important for each of you to look in the mirror and say, what action am I taking to build this foundation of my business? What action am I taking to prepare myself for next year, for that 10X? What action am I taking to identify things that I can leverage today? A lot of times you have to actually take a step back and look at what you have and say, what do I need to tighten up? You may have customer agreements that if you intend to sell your company, the customer agreements don't have an assignment clause. You have to go back and readjust that. Those are the kinds of things we want to go through with you to make sure that you are positioned in the greatest opportunity, the greatest potential possible. And we know how to do that for you, because we love it and we really get excited about doing it. And we want to do that with you on August 14th and 15th. And I know that they're putting in some links and some phone numbers. We're going to have some VIPs that we're going to have private dinners with, but I want you there so that we can work on your business, so that you can stop working in your business.
Nailed that one right there. And you're right, Sharon, there's two different levels to this experience. And I want to say in 2 weeks, but it's literally next week. There's the executive level, which gets you access obviously directly with Sharon, with Mike, with Brandon, and everyone else. But the VIP is really where it's at, because both days there are private lunches with Brandon, with Sharon, with Mike, and the VIP group. There are limited seats. There's front row seating, just like Grant Cardone and his team does. Limited seating, first 3 to 5 rows. We are limited, of course, on that. But then you also, I think this is the kicker, Saturday night is a private dinner at Brandon's home right on the beach in Miami. And I'm talking, what a view. By the way, you can also see Grant's home. His building is literally right there as well. But it is just absolutely breathtaking on the 50th floor, facing the ocean as well as facing Miami. How do you even do that? And well, you do it in Miami, that's how. But it'll be a private event. It'll be really spectacular. So the learning, and I guess all of the exposure to this amazing content doesn't just happen during the day. I would say, honestly, the real magic happens with those intimate private conversations at dinners and at those lunches. So the VIP we still do have some seats, but man, we have a lot of people that have already signed up for that. So
yeah, we've got a lot of VIPs already
we
signed up.
really do.
You know, Heather, we can keep talking, but I see a few hands raised.
Questions.
So
I was
wanted
literally going to transition us, but you guys have been doing so well. But let's definitely get to some questions. I'm going to go to some live ones. And Sherman has had his hand up literally since the beginning of the call before I even logged in.
Where are you, Sherman?
He's
Come
up
on,
to-
Sherman
Hey,
Rowland.
I'm actually doing great here, and I really appreciate hearing you guys speak here. But I actually had a question from earlier, and I didn't actually have a question in the moment. I can make up a good one, but no, I actually forgot to put my hand down, so it's my mistake.
That's
there.
fine. Sherman is one of our longest clients. He has been in our ecosystem, has done so many of our programs. His team is incredible. I see Lizelle, one of your 10X employees, is on the call tonight as well.
Hey, John's on from China as well.
And John's on here as well, as brother and partner. So thank you so much, Sherman.
Yep.
Appreciate you. All right. I'm going to go over to Dr. G, Greg Pursley. I know you had your hand up most of the time as well. So let's,
I couldn't.
so let's get you unmuted.
Hey, Heather, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm really intrigued with this intellectual property because how do you create intellectual property if you're using other people's information and consolidating it down for you and for your use? Kind of like what Brandon did, where he weaponized other people's intellectual property. And then number two, how do you do that if you are implementing other people's systems inside your business?
Okay, now there are lots of different types of intellectual property, and just restating somebody else's thoughts can give you copyrights to the way that you're stating it. If you are using any other people's systems and you have a combination of those systems, that's unique. That's not an obvious combination. That may be something that's protectable, and it may be the combination of elements that is the intellectual property.
And that combination may actually become something that those companies that have those systems would want to license back from you. So it leverages what they've done because you've made an improvement on what they've done.
Yeah, sometimes the beauty of the intellectual property protections that are available is that improvements can be protectable in and of themselves. Now, it may be that you would have to get a license to use the basic foundational stuff, but they would have to get a license from you to use the improvement. Again, if you put the right foundations in place.
Got it. Dr. G is muted, but give me a head nod, G, because I know you're driving. So just give me a head nod.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I unmuted myself so I didn't echo, but no, I really appreciate it. And I also really appreciate the book Exit Rich. Man, what what a game changer for me. So I really appreciate you guys. I'm actually driving to the airport because I get to go fly out for a meeting with Brandon myself. So you guys are always bringing value. I just really appreciate you guys a lot.
Well, thank you, Dr. G. Hopefully we'll see you in Miami. That's fantastic. Appreciate the question.
Yes. And Dr. G, I'll see you on Thursday. I'm going to be there too. I'll get to see you. All right. Let's go to Mr. Malcolm. I like that. It's so official. Mr. Malcolm, let's get you unmuted.
Hey, oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Sharon, that is one handsome man. You did well. And Michael, you did fantastic. That's
I think I got the better of the deal.
You certainly did. And I just want to thank you, Sharon, for this manual that I've been diving into and using. It's absolutely incredible. And my question is that you mentioned earlier that people in your team might be good for, like some of my friendships in the past were good for me when I was younger, but not good for me as an adult. So as we move forward, is it okay to use like a team like from Legal Shield? And as I get bigger, find someone who's more professional, and does that person that I start working with has to be licensed with the USPTO? And should I use your book, Michael, as a companion to this, protecting your number one assets and OPM?
So yes, you should
Yes.
use his books, OPM and Protecting Your Number One Asset. OPM stands for Other People's Money and is a brilliant book, and he really dives into it. And it's something that has tremendous value and helps you form the questions you need to ask. Now, I'm going to actually answer part of this question for Michael
Okay, go for it.
because he is a very high level advisor attorney. And so there are forms you can get off online or LegalZoom, you can get things, but we do not recommend those because we want you to have the best advice possible for you and your situation. And if anybody cuts that portion of my answer out and gets me in trouble, I'm not going to be happy. But we want you to be able to have the best advice possible. And your situation is unique to you. That's how we create your competitive advantage. And so it's, yes, in some circumstances, a form off of the internet might work for you just fine. But we
Okay.
want you to have the advice of the wisdom of somebody who knows how to open doors for you and get you the right advice. And if you see Sherman, who's the long-term customer client, his head's going up and down. So
Yeah, you're framing the issue, you're framing the problem that they give you, quote, an answer, unquote, to you. But they don't know the particulars of your situation. And sometimes you're asking the wrong question. I've seen that happen way too many times. And they'll use an agreement they get off the internet or from one of these services. And it's a great agreement, but it's for the wrong thing. It doesn't do what you need it to do.
and it may not, it might be a one-way agreement that should be mutual. So you want that wisdom on your team. Believe me, the legal expenses might look high at the beginning, but they're much higher later if you don't do it right at the beginning.
I spent many a years doing litigation, and believe me, it was much less expensive to do it right in the beginning,
Right.
to try and clean it up after the fact.
Awesome. Thank you.
And a little bit of forethought can avoid all sorts of problems.
So for instance,
Question.
I'll challenge all of you, but you've probably used outsources for websites, for marketing materials, for headshots. You may not own them, because if you don't have the right agreements with the people that you use to do it, they may still own the copyrights. And so whenever we do something with the outside, we always have a work for hire agreement to make sure that when we pay for it, we own all the rights to it.
There is magic language that has to be in the agreement to make sure that you maximize your rights, that you get what you're paying for.
Got it.
And Sherman says they wasted a bunch of money on the cheaper patent attorney. Yep. And we feel your pain, Sherman. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Mr. Malcolm. Perfect. All right. I'm going to go to Trista Morstad. I am so excited to see her on here. Another client of ours. Hi, Trista.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
Great. Great to see you. Introduce yourself so Sharon and Mike know who you are.
So I'm Trista with Precision Landscape and Irrigation here in Minnesota. And my question is probably geared towards Michael. We have obviously a landscape company, and I'm wondering if like our production numbers. So my husband has spent a lot of time building these worksheets to come up with production numbers for the time that we think it's going to take us to do certain parts of the job so that he can bid them out appropriately. So would that be something that would be considered, like intellectual property, I guess?
It definitely is intellectual property. The question is how you would protect it and how you best exploit it. Now, sometimes the best way to protect intellectual property, particularly when you're talking about something that isn't accessible to the public, is just to keep it secret. You make sure that you restrict access to it and that you've got good, solid, non-disclosure, non-use agreements with everybody that has access to it, including your employees.
Yeah, you could package it so that you could sell it to other landscape companies around the world.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the exploitation piece. Now, how do you do that and still keep it secret? Well, you rely on the law of contracts, and you create a fiction of secrecy through the right types of agreements.
So I remember Sharon talking about last weekend, was it last weekend or in the end of July down in Florida, about how do you, you talked about owning it outside of the business, but that can be tricky if it was kind of developed through the business. I mean, at this point, would there be any way to remove that from Precision Landscape and own it outside of that?
I guess the question really relates to the ownership of the business. And I mean, if there are third-party owners, if it's not,
it's
just family owned.
Yep.
Then, okay, so that's question one. The next question is when this was developed. If it was developed on the job and it was what the developer was paid to do, it was within the scope of their employment,
okay,
then the company would probably own it.
So if Pat really developed all of it.
Well, now if the question is then becomes when? Did he do it on his own time? Was that what he was being paid to do, or was it being paid to do other stuff? So if somebody invents something and it's not within the normal course of within the scope of their duties, then they would retain the ownership and the business would get what's referred to as a shop right.
Okay.
And in that case, you can put it into a separate entity and license it. So it
similar to what Brandon did. So what he developed, all his education stuff, was not pursuant to his employment with Audigy, but he was utilizing it to help build Audigy. And so he was able to move it into a separate company, but give Audigy still the rights to use it and build from it. So they didn't lose anything, but he was able to continue having that outside. So there needs to be economic benefit that there's an exchange. So if it was built on company time and he wants to dividend it out to himself personally, then there's an economic exchange because there's economic benefit to you as individuals, and then he can put it into a company. Or you can say this is going to go into a separate company, and it's going to, that company, the separate company, can still be owned by your landscaping company. All right.
Well, and so right now, currently our landscape company is an LLC, but our family trust actually owns the LLC.
Okay, so then if everybody that is involved with the trust agrees, then it's a simple thing to pull the IP out.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, the biggest
now,
yeah.
There are other things that you should be looking at. I mean, if there is some sort of a distinctive design that you use, and again, I'm kind of stretching here.
Yep.
Things that set you apart. People look at grounds that you have landscaped, and they say, "Gee whiz, that must have come from Trista's company because I see this." That's a trademark.
For example, those of you who are familiar with Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect, the Biltmore, his last project is here in Arizona, and Michael got they have a very signature block that they use in their buildings. And Michael, they were a client of Mike's, and he got that block trademarked so that they own.
Yeah, we registered that mark. So we registered use of that style block.
So what's really awesome about this right now, by the way, Trista, thank you so much, because Trista was at Exit Summit. She's also going to be at the mastermind.
Oh,
but
yay.
Good.
Yeah, but what the example of the last 7 to 8 minutes is exactly the kind of advice you're going to get at the mastermind. Like, I think that is something everyone should know, is that this one-on-one deep dive into what your needs are. This is exactly what you'll get. So Sharon and Mike, you guys are just absolutely tremendous. We have a little bit of time left for maybe a couple more. Does that sound good?
Certainly.
Fantastic. Jared Ritter, that bright blazer, you cannot miss it. Let's get you unmuted. Let's go.
Hey, Heather, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem, man. How you doing?
Hey, doing great. Thank you for bringing me on here. Sharon and Michael, thank you guys so much. Sharon, I would consider you a childhood hero of mine, rich dad, poor dad, just lit me on fire. So thank you so much. And it's just a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Jared.
Absolutely. So as you can tell, I have a personal brand of mine, and I had this. So I have this at the exit. I have a different blazer every single day. I have over 100 of them. I sell real estate. It's been my way to stand out from the crowd. It's become my personal brand within the company. So my question would relate to the IP of that. What are some things that someone can do, should do, does it matter as far as protecting your IP of your personal brand within your company?
Well, the question is whether it's different from what other people have done. Okay, now, if it is really associated with you and other people haven't done it,
right,
then I mean, you're going to have trademark rights. Now, it would be just the fact that you're using it and it identifies you gives you common law rights. Now, whether you can stop other people from using brightly colored blazers is a question and could be tough.
Right.
So you would need to try to narrow it down. Now, if there was a particular color combination or particular shapes,
gotcha,
things that wouldn't prevent people from using blazers in general or colored blazers.
Yes, absolutely.
And your tagline, bright blazer broker, maybe you have a special thing inside your jacket that is a designated.
Or you'd want it to show.
Yeah,
it would have to show, but
and then potentially you could have brokers in other parts of the country want to be known as the bright blazer broker, so that
yes, absolutely.
So if you shoot too broadly to the extent where you're really taking away from the public something that they would typically have a right to do,
absolutely,
you're gonna have problems doing that.
Yes, sir.
So again, you just narrow it down. You focus on something that is absolutely unique, and people have alternatives.
Gotcha. Okay.
Bright blazer broker is something that you can really leverage to a big way that identifies you. That trademark identifies you.
Yes,
that
I do have that trademarked.
Very good.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much. I wish I could come to the event, but I will be hosting something different, but I will most certainly be at the next one. And again, thank you. And Sharon, it's a pleasure to speak to you in person.
Well, thank you, Jared.
And Michael, you too. Thank you, sir.
Don't forget about Michael. Geez.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Hey, I'm going to go to Christian Abdul Akbar. Let's get you unmuted. Christian, I don't know if we've met you before. Are you new to our call?
Yeah, I was at the 10X Summit just 2 weeks ago. It was great to meet Sharon in person. What's up, Michael?
How you doing, Christian?
Heather, what's going on, Heather?
Hey.
So I got a question. What is the best cost-effective way to trademark and copyright a new startup company, like a poor man's version of an actual startup company?
Well,
a copyright.
Okay, copyrights, you got them. You put it on paper, you put your thoughts in fixed form. Copyrights are automatic. Now, you can't enforce them unless you register them. And there are advantages to registering the copyrights before there's any sort of an infringement. But the bottom line is copyrights are automatic. Now, understand what a copyright gets you. That just, let's say you're describing the processes or your products or your latest, greatest stuff. Okay, copyright won't stop people from reading that and replicating your stuff. It'll just stop them from copying the paper. Making sense?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Now, trademarks, similar situation. you do some research, you make sure you're not stepping on anybody else's toes, and then you start using them and you start building your rights. Now, there are reasons why you would want to register a trademark, because your rights based on common law only extend as far as you're doing business geographically. Now, if you're doing business on the internet, you can make a pretty good argument that it extends throughout the states. But in any event, registration is worth doing. It can be done on the internet. You generally should get an attorney to help you with the first one. But after that, once you've gone through that process, you can do it yourself.
And we're going to take you through that at the mastermind. But Christian, you can go to uspto.gov and do a trademark search. And a lot of people try to register their own trademarks. But what Mike is talking about is very important, because it's not just the mark that you're registering. Then you have to say what category of trademark. Is it on merchandise? So
you need to specify the goods or services with which you're going to use that mark, because the registration pertains only to those goods and services. So that's where the lawyering comes in, to help you state that. Now, it's a whole lot easier today than it used to be, because the trademark office has got a list of descriptions of goods and services that they find acceptable. And if you can find one of those that fits your purposes, then it's easy. But you need to be able to, go through and figure out which one will work for you, or ones, because sometimes you may need to have, more than one class covered.
And one of the things that's important, the second step of getting your trademark, is having that quality control, because you go through the process of getting a trademark registered, but you have to protect it, because if other people start using it without acknowledging you, then you risk losing that trademark.
Yeah, understand. Trademarks were the original consumer protection law. There was a single source of goods that bore a particular brand, and consumers could rely on that. That way they could judge the worth, the quality of the goods. And until just the last 100 years or so, you couldn't license anybody else to use your trademark. You couldn't let them use your trademark unless they were working for you. Today, you can do that. You can license people to use your trademarks, but you still have to have appropriate quality control. You have to control the quality of the goods or services that they're putting that mark on, so that the consumers are protected. Making sense?
Absolutely, I appreciate it. That website was uspts.gov.
uspto.gov.
Yeah, US Patent and Trademark Office.
Yeah, uspto.gov.
And it's a regular Boolean search, just like you do on Google.
Appreciate it.
Love it.
We want to invite all of you. I'm going to ask them to put the phone number in here, because we'd really like to see all of you guys in Miami. We're going to have some surprises for everybody. We want to really be able to work and support each of you to, achieve that next level of success. And we're so excited. We're so excited to be part of this.
Yeah, please keep posting that phone number so people can have it, sales team. And Sharon and Michael, your time, energy, and effort tonight was fire. Amazing. I think everyone on this call would agree. This has absolutely been one of the most informative, educational, incredible calls that we've ever had. And just thank you so much for bringing all of your knowledge and wisdom to the table, because like you said, if you're gonna grow and scale and learn how to exit your business properly and protect yourself, you got to learn from the experts, the people who have been there, done it, like literally can look at your business and instantly ask you the right questions to get, just like Brandon does, surgically right down to knowing what not just the symptom is, but what the root cause of things are. And if you want to get that same type of advice, I see a lot of people saying, how do we get in contact with Michael directly? Well, Sharon doesn't let him have a phone. So sorry, guys. He doesn't get to talk to anyone directly, but she's letting them out next weekend, 14th and 15th in Florida. We will be there. So let us know if you guys want to
find his book at SharonLechter.com, OPM. But I wanted to, I think I actually want to brag on him a little bit because he didn't know he was participating tonight until a couple of hours ago. And so he did a pretty good job. I think we should give him a round of applause.
Yay! 10x in the chat.
Because he's an engineer and an attorney, so he likes to be prepared. So this off the cuff stuff, he wasn't really happy with me, but I think he did a pretty good job, don't you?
He killed it. Absolutely killed it. Well done. And thank you so much. I know there's a lot of hands left raised still but we are out of time at this particular juncture. So thank you so much, Sharon and Michael. We'll see you guys definitely next week. Yeah. Everyone else, I think
see the rest of you.
That's right. You'll get to see a lot of people who are on this call next week and hopefully more. With that being said, I'm going to pass it over to our amazing sales team, Enrique and Ashley. I'm going to give you the reins. And I know, Enrique, you're so excited right now. You're so ready to just take over this call and kick me off. I know it.
No, I appreciate you guys very much. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yes, you are. All right. Well, I'm going to pass it over to you. If you guys have questions about the mastermind next week, Enrique will be happy to answer your questions. And if Ashley's still on, for sure. But otherwise, take care, everyone. 10X. And we will talk to you guys next week. It won't be me, it'll be Buck. He's going to be back and better than ever.
The whole purpose of this show is to engage with business owners and be able to answer questions for people that will give them some insight and perspective on how to grow and scale a business. Not only leadership, but real life examples. This is the golden moment. I would do business with you right now.